In the city, zombie like creatures called rotters are killing and eating people everywhere. As people panic and run to find shelter, a reporter continues to try and cover the event. However, the rotters quickly catch up, killing her and the cameraman. Chaos and destruction spread throughout the streets as the rotters display a certain level of intelligence, breaking glass doors to reach those hiding. A woman tries to avoid danger while talking to her daughter on the phone. Unfortunately, a rotter starts chasing her, and she is eaten alive. It all began 4 hours ago. Zoe, a medical student, and her classmates are in the laboratory, where the professor asks them to theorize the cause of death of a decaying body in front of them. Zoe realizes it is the flu but can't identify which type. Soon after, the professor asks her to take a blood sample from a patient with unusually high antibody levels. Zoe followed the orders, but she wasn't happy to see Max, a regular patient who always obsessed her. As Zoe began to take the first blood sample, Max started saying creepy, persistent words, making Zoe feel disgusted. He even carved her name into his arm as a wound. After Zoe took both blood samples, Max touched her thigh, making Zoe uncomfortable. Luckily, her best friend arrived just in time and kicked Max out of the room. Later, Zoe joined a party organized by the medical students. She heard they were hiding a keg of beer in the morgue and decided to go there to help bring it back for the party. Upon entering, she found no one around and moved cautiously, only to be startled by a moving corpse. However, it turned out to be a partygoer joking around. Now he took the first keg and left, while Zoe was getting the second one. At that moment, Max appeared and started becoming more bizarre, ignoring Zoe's protests. When he said they had a connection, Zoe screamed for help in fear, and Max punched her, knocking her to the ground. He then pinned her down, starting to undress, intending to take advantage of her. As Max began to lick Zoe's face, the corpse in the classroom suddenly woke up and attacked Max, biting him hard. Zoe rushed back to the party, warning everyone about some kind of monster. However, no one took her seriously until the professor suddenly revealed he was infected and immediately bit a student. At the same time, the rotters from the morgue appeared, continuing their killing spree. The partygoers panicked and ran for their lives, while the creatures kept attacking, even vomiting in people's faces. Zoe climbed out of the window and tried to save her best friend, but the professor quickly caught up and bit her on the neck. Several rotters rushed in, tearing and biting, and Zoe could only watch as her best friend was eaten and infected before fleeing. 5 years later, the world had completely changed. The rotter pandemic had spread into a global epidemic, and the few survivors were left in special refugee camps. Zoe was fortunate to survive and make it to one of these camps, but she was later transferred to High Rock Bunker, a military intelligence and reconnaissance station in the mountains. The base was surrounded by fences, and soldiers shot down rotters as they approached passersby. Zoe's task was to gather information on the rotters for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, although they hadn't received any news from the organization in a year. Lieutenant Miguel believed Zoe's research was just a waste of time. Nevertheless, Zoe remained optimistic and continued to explore feasible solutions alongside her assistant Elise. Her medical knowledge had made her the lead doctor in the camp. One morning, she checked on a girl named Lily, who was still sick despite taking medication. After a thorough examination, Zoe hurried to meet Miguel and the council to inform them that Lily had bacterial pneumonia. Zoe wanted to lead a team to her old medical laboratory at the university to collect supplies to save Lily. Initially, Miguel refused, explaining that going beyond the usual search radius just to save one person was too dangerous. Zoe angrily pointed out that if not treated in time, the illness could spread within the base and kill the few remaining survivors. Reluctantly agreeing, Miguel accepted the proposal. After the meeting, Zoe was visited by Baca, Miguel's older brother, who was also her boyfriend. They started to become intimate, but when things were about to go too far, Zoe suddenly remembered Max's attack and stopped Baca without explaining why. The next day, Zoe left with 2 teams led by Baca. Outside the base, they found several dead rotters, but throughout the journey, they encountered nothing else. Along the way, one of the vehicles suddenly broke down, forcing them to stop and make repairs. The surrounding forest was dense, and they couldn't see the rotters approaching, so they needed to hurry. However, as night began to fall, the vehicle was still not repaired. Suddenly, they heard growls and noises from the forest, making everyone tense. Fortunately, they managed to finish fixing the vehicle, and everyone hurried back inside. However, the vehicle wouldn't start, and a rotter appeared at the window. But before the horde of monsters could get closer, the vehicle finally started and the team escaped safely. A few hours later, they arrived at the university. Baka split the team into two, with half staying behind to guard the entrance, and the other half escorting Zoe through the building. They found blood and broken belongings everywhere, but fortunately, the pharmacy was locked and secure. Zoe knew the password and unlocked the door, allowing the team to gather a lot of medicine for the base. Zoe found her old laboratory and paused, while the team continued ahead. She grabbed old photos and some items that could help with her research. Suddenly, the back door opened and a rotter appeared. Zoe fired a shot to scare it off, then ran down the hallway and closed the door behind her. She fired a few more shots just in case and hurriedly ran away, dropping her hair tie. The hair tie was found by Rotter from the lab, and it turned out to be Max. He smelled it and immediately recognized it. The gunshots drew the attention of other Rotters in the building, and they began searching for the prey, even falling down the stairs. Baga's team also heard the noise and went to look for Zoe, and fortunately, they found her first. They were about to leave, but the Rotters quickly caught up and charged at Frank, sinking their teeth into his neck. The others shot down the Rotter, but many more creatures appeared and continued attacking Frank. He told his team to go without worrying about him. As the rest of the group hurried out of the building, Frank used his last breath to shoot and stab as many Rotters as possible. The next morning, the team returned to base, unaware that Max had followed them back. He hid under a car while Miguel and the guards were distracted by Baga's report. Max took advantage of this opportunity to sneak out without anyone noticing. Miguel scolded them for losing a soldier, and Frank's girlfriend angrily blamed Zoe for their loss. Max hid and watched a few children playing ball outside the fence. A guard quickly ordered the children inside, but one stayed behind to retrieve the ball that had rolled out. As the boy was about to go too far, the guard noticed and told him to come inside, promising to fetch the ball for him. Max immediately jumped up, attacked the guard, and killed him in just a few seconds. He then ran towards the base and snuck in without anyone noticing, just before the door was locked. There were too many guards around, so Max had to hide in the ventilation ducts and use the scent of the hair tie to track down Zoe. Meanwhile, Zoe hurriedly gave the medicine to Lily. On her way back to her room, Max finally saw her and began to follow, but he stopped when he saw Baka approach her. The couple talked and shared a kiss, which made Max incredibly angry with jealousy. At the same time, in the maintenance room, Lily's father heard a noise in the ventilation duct and thought it was a rat. He climbed into the duct, but was discovered by Max and immediately attacked. A while later, Lily's mother, Wendy, came looking for her husband and saw the blood on the vent cover. When she opened the cover, her husband's body fell out, and she screamed and ran away. Unfortunately, Max chased her, shoved her into a cupboard, and dragged her away by her leg. Meanwhile, Zoe checked on Lily's condition, and the girl felt better. Max returned to the vent and continued to watch, waiting. When Zoe left the room, Max appeared and blocked her path. Zoe immediately ran and activated the intrusion alarm. However, Max cornered her at a locked door. He rolled up his sleeve to reveal her name, causing Zoe to finally recognize who he was. Max shoved Zoe into the door, but instead of biting her, he just became physically intrusive. At that moment, a group of soldiers appeared and opened fire, taking down Max. Zoe suddenly rushed in as a shield, pleading with them not to kill him, saying that Max was alive and intelligent, and he was the clue she needed for her research. Baka threw a net, and along with his teammates, they chained Max in the laboratory. When Miguel found out, he immediately became furious and scolded Zoe. However, Zoe proved this was a breakthrough by holding her arm out in front of Max, and he didn't bite her. Zoe was certain that some part of Max's brain was still active and could help her create a vaccine. Miguel still didn't believe her, but Frank's girlfriend overheard the conversation and demanded he keep Max alive, so Frank's death wouldn't be in vain. Miguel reluctantly agreed to let Zoe keep Max, but ordered the soldiers to shoot him at the first sign of abnormal behavior. Sometime later, Elise and Zoe were reviewing Max's scan results and discovered that some parts of his body had died, but his heart, eyes, and brain were still functioning like a human. To understand why, they needed a blood sample. Elise kept a firm grip on her gun while Zoe approached Max, pretending to seduce him, and took the blood sample while he licked her face and called her name. By the end of the day, Baka came to check on Zoe, which only made Max angrier. Zoe explained that Max's blood had high hormone levels that could stop the virus, but she didn't know exactly which hormone gland it came from, so she needed virus samples from other living rotters to find the difference. Baka wasn't fond of the idea, but Zoe convinced him that there was no other option. They waited until it was dark enough to take the samples without telling Miguel. Baka led a team to the main gate, carefully releasing a rotter inside, and it was immediately subdued. Zoe quickly took a blood sample, and then Baka shot the rotter in the head. They released another rotter, but as Zoe was taking the second sample, more and more rotters gathered around the gate. Eventually, the guards couldn't hold them back anymore, and the rotters charged in, attacking the soldiers, tearing and killing without hesitation. The remaining soldiers shot down a few rotters before rushing back to the vehicle. Elise was driving, and just before she could leave, a rotter bit her arm. The rotters saw the vehicle leaving and began chasing after it. At the base, Miguel searched for Zoe and found Max, recognizing the name carved on his arm. This made Miguel think that Max was Zoe's lover, and she was keeping him for personal reasons. At that moment, the alarm went off, and Miguel rushed to the base gate, where the vehicles were returning. He and the other soldiers shot at the rotters to stop them, managing to close the gate just in time before they could breach. Miguel shouted and noticed the bite mark on Elisa's arm, drawing his gun. Zoe pointed out that the infection hadn't spread yet, and it would take time since the bite wasn't to the head, so her vaccine could cure it. However, Miguel was skeptical about the vaccine's effectiveness and shot Elise in the head. Zoe screamed angrily, and Miguel turned the gun on her, but Baka intervened just in time, asking him to calm down. Miguel gave Zoe 12 hours to complete her experiment before he would kill Max. Baka followed Miguel to the office, questioning his attitude. Miguel talked about the name on Max's arm and implied that Zoe had betrayed him, leading him to believe that Zoe had her own motives. Confused, Baka went to see Zoe and demanded an explanation. Zoe eventually confessed what Max had done to her and how she had to live with the trauma. She felt hurt by Baka's lack of trust and walked away. In the lab, Zoe continued her research while two soldiers brought her a glass of water. One of them got too close to Max, mocking him, which made Max angry. He grabbed the soldier's neck and slammed her head against the wall. The other soldier immediately pulled them apart, and Max took the opportunity to grab the chain key. After the soldiers left, Max repeatedly called Zoe's name, saying she was his, but Zoe ignored him and continued her work. After several hours and many experiments, Zoe confirmed that Max's blood could stop the virus and could be used to create a vaccine. Even those who had already been infected could resist the virus before it reached the brain. At this point, Max finally freed himself from the chains with the key and began to strangle Zoe. Zoe immediately threw a vial of chemicals in his face and ran away. She found the soldiers and asked them to go to the lab, but when they arrived, Max had already disappeared. The entire team was on alert again, ordering the residents to stay inside the residential area. Lily, frightened, went looking for an adult, but she only discovered that Wendy had turned into a rotter. A chase ensued, and Lily collided with a soldier, who was immediately attacked and bitten by Wendy. Lily was cornered, but before Wendy could kill her, Max appeared and killed Wendy first. In the residential area, Miguel informed the residents that everything was under control to keep them calm, then ordered Baka's team to eliminate Max, even though the vaccine wasn't ready. Meanwhile, Zoe searched for Lily and followed the trail of bodies, grabbing a gun from a fallen soldier. Eventually, Zoe discovered that Max had kidnapped Lily and wanted to trade Zoe for the girl. Zoe threatened to commit suicide, which made Max so angry that he nearly killed Lily. But Zoe lowered the gun, and Max released Lily, while the girl hid under a car. Max grabbed Zoe by the hair and opened the gate to let the rotters in. Some of the creatures tried to bite Zoe, but Max protected her. At that moment, the soldiers arrived and opened fire, killing as many rotters as they could. Miguel quickly shot Max, causing Max to release Zoe. A rotter found Lily, and she ran out of the bunker, with Zoe chasing after her, while Max also pursued them. The soldiers continued shooting at the rotters, but unfortunately, there were too many. The rotters surrounded the guards at the door and killed one, opening the way for more to flood deeper into the bunker, massacring the residents. One by one, people fell before they could escape, while the remaining two guards fought fiercely, trying to kill as many rotters as possible. But then, both of them collapsed, one of them bitten in the neck. With no other choice, her teammates were forced to shoot her in the head before she transformed. At the main gate, Baka was bitten on the hand while taking down the last rotter. Miguel closed the gate, but Baka stopped him, worried about Zoe. Miguel angrily threatened to shoot him. At that moment, two rotters suddenly rushed out from hiding and attacked Miguel, ripping open his stomach to eat him. Another rotter jumped at Baca, but he quickly took it down and shot the two feeding on Miguel. Still, Miguel didn't make it. When Baca reopened the door, another rotter suddenly appeared and bit him again before being shot down. Meanwhile, Zoe found Lily, and the two of them hid in the greenhouse. Max spotted them through the window and charged in, following Zoe's scent. He found her jacket on the table, but it was a trap. Zoe suddenly appeared from the pile of dirt and attacked Max with a gardening knife, stabbing his stomach before decapitating him. Afterward, Zoe and Lily returned inside and found Baca, who was about to end his life. Zoe convinced him to wait because the infection hadn't spread widely. She still had time to finish the vaccine. Soon after, in the lab, Zoe injected Baca with the first dose of the experimental vaccine. Fortunately, it worked effectively, and now she could use his antibodies to produce more vaccine doses. Zoe sent a message through the radio, inviting survivors to the bunker for vaccination. The residents began rebuilding, bringing new hope for the future. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next exciting videos. Thank you for watching.